Seeing nothing for public comment, correct? Public comment, right, we're gonna jump right into this. I want to thank Trevor Cole for coming back this evening for an overview presentation of the LWRP. There's nothing better than some alphabet soup of government, so I'm gonna kick it right over to Trevor and have him do a review for us.
You'll know that I took my dinner right out of the oven and handed it up to my family just as I walked out the door.
Thank you.
No
Appreciate
problem.
that, Troy. Sacrifice.
Are you all able to get this on your respective video cameras with the lights on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Congratulations, Mr. Cashman and honorable members of the board. We're almost there with the LWRP. It's been a little over a year working towards it, so I'll give you a brief nuts and bolts overview of some of the important things that we've come to learn about it and what I think are some of the real important highlights. Some of the first things I just want to touch on are that what I like about this plan is it's not just a plan to plan. We really went the extra mile, I think, with this, and what we have is a map for development of the waterfront in a really conscientious way, but also it's a toolbox. There's some really neat strategies, and this is kind of a next level sort of plan that gives us a lot of tools, and it's not just a document you read and then do something with. It's got some really interesting tools in it that I want to show you. And most importantly, it identifies fundable shovel-ready projects and how to implement them. I think that's very valuable. In summary, it utilized a shared community vision, accurate community profile, identification of key priority projects, implementation strategies, and of course the things that most people have come to look at are the schematic designs. But I think actually more important than that is the implementation strategies.
Sure. Yeah.
Something I think is kind of unique about our plan to us is we went with a hamlet strategy. So we identified 6 hamlet areas in the town. And along with that, we really focused on each hamlet having a unique sense of place and went with a ecological approach to waterfront development. We really focused more on non-motorized recreational use and enhanced access for first and foremost residents, secondarily visitors, to really get close to the water. Our point was, how do you get people close to the water without also harming that waterfront and keeping it fresh for our historical heritage. So we focused on 5 key strategies. One was developing a sense of place. Each hamlet, I think, has its own unique area. Morrisonville is quite different than Katyville, is quite different than Treadwell's Mills and Cumberland Head. We wanted to focus on that and not just do a blanket plan across the town. Focusing on recreation and connectivity and access to the waterfront, that speaks for itself, but really that idea that we really want to get people to the waterfront in some areas of the town is very difficult. Stewardship, again, should speak for itself, but I think that this resource that we have is incredible. And the stewardship component is a big part of that, showing that we care about it, makes other people care about it. Growth and development, allowing for us to grow sustainably on that waterfront and really promote it. And regional coordination. Something that's powerful about our plan is it nests well within the SRTG, the Saranac River Trail Greenway Plan, the Clinton County Destination Master Plan. It works in conjunction with our comprehensive plan. And each one of our hamlet plans could be pulled out of the plan on its own and be its individual hamlet plan. So the nesting of all the different plans that work in conjunction with each other is a very powerful tool for future funding, because we can clearly demonstrate that our plan works with all the other plans in the area. So we picked the 6 priority areas were Katyville, Morrisonville, Treadwell's Mills, moving east towards the lake, Cumberland Corners at the top, Cumberland Head, and Cliff Haven. And you see all this kind of tie-dye, color going on. That's not just to look pretty. Each of those areas was identified as an area of a goal focus. So all those individual properties and areas correlate to a goal. I'll pick 4. Promote growth and development of the town's hamlets. And when you look at some of those areas in the map, we identified either certain area types, land use types, population zones, areas that would, could utilize that strategy. Goal 3, improve ecological stewardship. When you look at the areas of the map, obviously Valcour Island is included in that color zone. And you'll see how these color zones come back in a minute. Part of developing our plan was to find out what we have first, so we developed a community profile. That was using our own resources in-house, identifying where all of our parks were, fishing areas, kayaking, and then again in our public outreach meetings in different hamlets, and when we solicited comments from people who finally saw our maps, they helped us use these icons and place them on our maps in different areas of the town to show what our assets are, what we actually have. And we adopted the same iconography as was used for the Saranac River Trail Greenway plan. Again, to show that meshing of both plans and that there was no conflict, we contacted Alta Planning. They played nicely and let us use the same imagery. Not always common between different consultants, but they played nice in the sandbox. And the way this meshes in, I just picked Katyville at random, but you can see now that how the icons obviously line up with the different assets. That's Katyville Park. It's got all sorts of good stuff going on there. But then the river, so it allows us, it's kind of an inventory of what we have going on. And again, drilling down and identifying the opportunities that we have and what for each of those aspects as well, natural environment, economy, recreation, culture. So even as a hamlet plan, that's what I like to emphasize, rather than just waterfront, it's also a good inventory of each hamlet. And so, again, the public participation that went on to identify some of this stuff, I'm not going to read through that, but the point was we had several public presentations, 2 day-long meetings in 2 different locations in the town to have all the plans proposed, set up. Really, solicited those comments. They were great events. We got a lot of good comments, and they really drove some alterations in some of the projects. So I think the public participation part was very productive. This is one from the firehouse. The image there is from the firehouse in Cumberland. From those stakeholder meetings and public outreach, we identified the 5 key priority projects in the town. Katyville Beach improvements, Lapeer Lane Park in Morrisonville, the Treadwell's Mills scenic overlook right near the dam. In Cliff Haven, it was the jetties across from Claire and Carl's, the old fueling room. And at Cumberland Head, it was the possible movement of the road and just the entire vista area along the road, which is incredibly beautiful. So those were identified as 5 key priority projects. And drilling down was how do you implement these? And again, using the strategies and goals, actually the colors geared towards goals, and then those were then turned into strategies. And you'll see how that color in the map relates to strategies. So, all that color and all these numbers, what's that all about? I'll pick one at random here. Let's look at, this is Lapeer Lane in Morrisonville. And you'll see 2 strategies. There's MV 3.1 and then MV 2.1, 2.2. And so a unique way to use our plan as compared to many others I've seen, what I like about this is when you dig down to the hamlet and now look at the strategy 2.2, continue to support both day and overnight use of Lapeer Lane Park for part of the Northern Forest Canoe Trail. Up here you have increased signage, wayfinding on Banker Road to find your way to the waterfront. Some of them seem basic, but they're concrete strategies, and each one shows our potential funding sources for each of the hamlets. So you go back to the map, you see a strategy. This area is near the bridge in Morrisonville. You got MV 1.2 is actually, I think, Gatto Road, where, no, actually, I'm mistaken. So, just out of curiosity, 1.2 is, again, increase the signage. And so it goes on like that for each hamlet. It would identify each of the goals, color-coded to an area of the town with an implementation strategy and a source of funding to implement. So it's got another layer of sophistication that some other plans I've seen don't have. It's fine-grained. A lot of them are blanket plans. This actually gives you key areas and implementation strategies. In drilling down, I'll take the example of Lapeer Lane Park. So when it comes right to an actual project, you get the overview of the area in our plan. This is just a great parcel that we have as well. Followed up by a schematic design, rough estimate of implementation. But one thing to remember too is this overall design, it's an interesting design, but it's truly just a schematic concept. Could a boardwalk be shaped different and not be in this location? Could the parking lot be over here? All of those things are subject to change. This is a concept at the point, but it gets the point across what could be done, some potential cost estimates associated with those type of implementations. And some of this work's already been done out there. This one's kind of a low-hanging fruit project out of all of them. And finally, I wanted to touch on the waterfront plan's already working. Just by developing this plan, we had received a $15,000 grant from the county under the Key Priority Projects Implementation Grant. With knowing that we had this plan in place before it's been adopted, we already got that money to do an archaeological assessment, wetlands delineation, and now we're going to be able to do better bird's eye concept drawings to show the community along Lapeer Lane what it could look like if that park were to be further developed. As well, another town and CBPH Foundation public-private partnerships that identified. The board acted previously to authorize Mike to enter the grant application to the New York State Health Foundation. That project.
We did some stuff with pickleball, but this one for.
We didn't
this
move
particular-
forward for the
We're holding
grant
off on it,
application, that's right.
probably either towards late in the year or into the new year, just to get into a different funding cycle with them.
Supervisor, I'm just a little eager. That one, that's right, we have identified it, we gave a presentation to the CDPH Foundation, they seemed very favorable to it. That funding could potentially cover 100% of the cost, maybe a little bit of in-kind service, but it shows a great opportunity of how, identifying these projects in the public sphere could then, potentially move forward with private funding to move these initiatives forward, so it's pretty exciting. And then the last one, furtherance of the SRTG, the Saranac River Trail Greenway Committee has already identified our plan as furthering their objectives. We've identified several nodes on this. Our plan also includes an overlay of all the preferred routes of the Saranac River Trail Greenway Corridor to show how our plan could integrate with the county river trail plan. So it's the idea was make all of these work together. So and finally, just a pretty picture. And that's that. That's the overview. Any questions?
Of all the projects, which one would have the most environmental impact as far as preservation and protection?
I'd be speculating. I mean, there's just a lot of variability. I mean, you look at this one, we're on Cumberland Head here, the lake is an obvious resource. I think each of the plans contain a component that has an ecological benefit. Katyville Beach, it's shoring up the beach. Out here, if the road were to be moved, erosion could be controlled, farm water runoff could be better mitigated. In Lapeer Lane, there's erosion going on there now where people put in the canoes, so the Northern Forest Canoe Trail has looked to put in actual stone steps that work with the curve of the bank, mitigating erosion. Treadwell's Mills, that area is more aesthetic, I'd say, but definitely human and life safety because people try getting out of their canoes at that area right now. It's pretty treacherous. I think each of the plans though have an ecological component.
Thanks.
Trevor, would you say that this could be seen as a best practice model for other types of plans like this, or we?
I think it's pretty darn good. I mean, I think that we can be really proud of our kind of preservationist approach in this plan. You didn't see one high-rise, hotel overlooking the shore, which is appropriate in some areas, but we looked at our resources and what we have to offer, and our plan seems to be a really good match for what we have to offer at a low cost, and to bring people in, and people come with money in their pockets.
Trevor, could you talk a little bit about your approach in collaborating and communicating with the Cliff Haven Homeowners Association?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That was kind of one of the public outreach moments that I said drove changes in the plan. That was interesting. So we got kind of clever. We put up our signs that said coming soon to the waterfront. No particular project had been identified, but we knew that gets people out to come to the waterfront. And so I called the Cliff Haven Homeowners Association and asked if we could have a meeting there, if I could sit in and give a presentation. Really great crowd at that one when we identified that area as one of the places where some improvements could go on. And we thought, we would have a talk about what could be done at the end of Valcourt Drive. There's a little parcel there. And we thought we had some ideas or maybe developing a little more. And that was one of the areas where the people really identified what they liked most about their area. Not having the increased traffic. maybe some just increased historic interpretive signage. But they gave a lot of input about, what would and wouldn't work in their neighborhood, and it made a lot of sense after sitting there and talking through them. And we focused our efforts a lot more towards the jetties, which were a much more public area and have this resource there. But working directly with the homeowners association was a powerful tool to kind of extract some of the best information about that hamlet.
And I think, Barb, that becomes the best practice for us too. I think they've been very open to having some ongoing conversations about this and other items as we move forward, so.
And with each of these strategies that we identified, in each of the priority projects, it's not just we talked about it, now we can go do it. Each of these plans would have, additional public hearings, because those are schematic designs, they're not final engineering plans. They get us to the table to fund these projects, to reach out and say, we have a plan, we've looked at the impacts, we've looked at the areas of interest, and now we can actually, fund the engineering studies for these and do additional outreach. And the Lapeer Lane is an example of that, working with the funding that I got through the county to have some additional bird's eye views. So unlike just the straight down schematic drawing, the bird's eye views are actually 3D renderings to give you a really good sense of what does this look like with, naturalized wooden playground equipment or a boardwalk and, interpretive signage. So it looks like how it'll look when you went there. So that goes a long way to actually showing the community what the improvements could look like.
So in each particular area, you need to do an engineering first, and then?
Yeah, this is a plan, not the engineering study to implement them. But that's across the board. You can draw a picture of your house, but then you got to go to an architect, And that's what this does. This draws the location, identifies where it could be, the social, cultural, environmental impacts, and then you design it and build it.
To me, the beauty of this plan is this plan gives these natural resources to local people. You don't have to have a $50,000 investment in order to access that lake. And you don't have to have, ownership of a lot in order to access that river. This is the beauty of this. Ran into a guy over this weekend, just a fellow that I'd never met before or whatever. He's a graduate of Plattsburgh, and we were talking, and one of the comments that he made was, he said, he keeps telling his wife that he wants to come back. He wants to live in the Plattsburgh area. And the reason he wants to live in Plattsburgh is because he's windsurfed on that lake. And he wants to go back and he wants to continue, he wants to, he's arriving at that point in time in his life where he's looking at retirement, and he says, I want to spend time windsurfing on that lake.
One thing we focused on is exactly that. Where do people want to be? You spend a lot of time on the campus, and where are all the sidewalks? There's so many sidewalks on campus, especially near Hawkins Hall. They all look like this, but they went where every herd path ever was. So you put the sidewalk where people want to go, and it protects the ground. Just like we all know where people want to go and get to, and sometimes it's really hard for people to get there because it hasn't been developed appropriately or protected, so it gets degraded. And that was something that we really focused on, was protecting those places.
I really like the idea that you're working with about trying to move that road, and because it is a town road, if we're in a position to move that road and create an additional block of space there where people can,
That was another Cumberland Head resident idea, as a matter of fact, from the meeting that we had at the fire station. First concept plan was, and this was just pie in the sky stuff, was potentially a parking lot on the other side of the road in the McDonough farm, or maybe a crosswalk with the flashing light, like a Georgia Pacific kind of idea. And that was just first thoughts about it. And I don't remember the resident's name, they lived further up the road, but that was their idea. What about, and what if could you pull the road in? And bells went off, many people said, that's a terrific idea, and that, exactly that came directly from the public outreach.
Could I ask a question?
Well allowed in this case, yeah.
I know on Cumberland Head, a lot of people own the beachfronts. Is this a town property?
Every evidence we've seen shows we have the town road to the water, and the
Yeah.
McDonough parcel doesn't seem to show any evidence that they have any waterfront.
All right, any other questions? Trevor, I just, on behalf of the board, thank you for your time and energy invested in this. I know that this is something that you're certainly passionate about and is in your wheelhouse, but it takes time and energy, along with a booming planning department, ongoing agenda. I think you had, 14 or 15 items
Yeah, 15.
last month. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but your outreach to community members, and also creating some new best practices like the Cliff Haven Homeowners Association, I think all of that groundwork will help us with other projects. So thank you on behalf of the town board, and thank you for coming out late at night and leaving the family home only to return in a little bit.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure to work on it. I think it's a good plan.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor.
Safe travels tonight, and thank you.
Just close this out so you don't have to stare at it.
All right.
Tonight?
Yeah, I thought that's bad. Call me.
All right.
Blinded.
We're gonna move straight in. We'll give Rick a second to get back, and I noticed he has his grapefruit 2.0 to wet his whistle for this next resolution.
It seems to be as long as all the resolutions at our last meeting.
Yeah, it's a long one. Trevor actually helped to prepare this resolution. Thank you
No problem.
for that. And this resolution relates to the work for the rezoning and putting forth the public hearing to stay on schedule and task. So, Rick, I would ask that you would read Resolution 16-191, setting a public hearing to review the proposed amendments for the town zoning ordinance.
Whereas at its regular scheduled work session on August 8, 2016, the Town of Plattsburgh Board did discuss and consider the merits and benefits of rezoning a portion of the former Clinton County Airport from zoning ordinance sub-district AD-MU to ADTB, zoning map amendment. And whereas the appropriate geographic area of the proposed zoning amendment is shown on the map entitled Proposed Zoning Map Amendment 2016, former Clinton County Airport. Whereas pursuant to Article 8, Section 17.3, all proposed amendments originating by the petition or a motion shall be referred to the Town of Plattsburgh Planning Board for report and recommendation thereof. And whereas the town board herein adopted resolution 16-176 at its regular session meeting held August 15, 2016, and pursuant to the zoning ordinance article 17.3, referred the petition to the planning board of the town of Plattsburgh for the report and recommendations in accordance with said section. Whereas the town planning board at the regular meeting on August 16, 2016, did receive and place on file said petition and established a working group of 4 planning board members to work with the planning staff to discuss the draft report and findings for further consideration of the planning board at the September 20th, 2016 monthly meeting. Whereas the planning board, after review and consideration of said maps, draft reports prepared by the staff in resolution 16-63, did find the same to accurately reflect the opinion of the planning board and accepted the recommendations as the final finding and recommendations of the planning board as resolved to transmit the report findings and the minute meetings to the town board. Whereas the town board is now in receipt of the planning board resolution number 16-73, minutes and report of the planning board, adopted at the meeting and held on September 20th, 2016. Whereas after review and discussion of the proposed draft map amendments, the town board desires to distribute the proposed draft 2016 map attached of the town zoning map as described in the town board resolution 16-167 to the appropriate agencies in accordance with Article 17, Section 17.3 and 17.4 of the town zoning ordinance and Sections 264 and 265 of New York State Town Law as follows. 1. Town Planning Board. 2. Clinton County Planning Board. 3. Town of Schuyler Falls and adjacent municipality bordering within 500 feet of the affected area of the proposed amendment. Whereas New York State law and the town zoning ordinance require that the public hearing on the proposed amendment be held to consider the availability of the amendment of the town of Plattsburgh zoning ordinance. Whereas Part 617 of the Environmental Conservation Law, New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, Section 8-0113, seeker herein, provides for the review of any action to determine the effect of said action on the environment, along with any related administrative procedures and implementation authorizations to approve said action. Whereas Part 617.4b, Section 2 of the seeker provides that the adoption of the changes in allowable use within the zoning district affects 25 or more acres, mandates the proposed amendments of said zoning ordinance as a Type 1 action which requires specific acts by the town of Plattsburgh prior to the adoption or rejection of said proposal and amendment. Whereas determination of said effects on the action of the environment will be necessary to determine whether a draft environmental impact statement is required. Whereas the town of Plattsburgh board is identified as an involved agency in accordance with the seeker for the purpose of assessing the effect of this zoning ordinance amendment on the environment and whether or not said effect is significant enough to warrant preparation of a draft environmental impact statement. And whereas the town board has made a determination that they intend to act as a lead agency, and there are no others involved agency in the seeker for the purpose of amendments to the zoning ordinance and the map have been prepared and required long environmental assessment form. Whereas the town board, town of Plattsburgh, as a project sponsor, is required to review and use the EAF to determination of the significance of the proposal amendment. Now therefore be resolved, the town board does hereby declare itself as the lead agency for the revisions and amendment of the zoning ordinance map, and does hereby determine that the proposed project is a Type 1 action, and considered review under the seeker will be not conducted, and there are no other involved agencies, and that further resolved that pursuant to Article 17, Section 17.4 of the town zoning ordinance, Section 264 and 265, New York State Town Law, the town clerk shall transmit a full statement of proposed amendment of the map to the Clinton County Planning Board prior to October 5th, 2016, Clinton County Planning Board meeting deadline. And to be further resolved that the town board shall hold a public hearing in relation to the proposed amendment zoning ordinance at the Town Hall, 151 Baker Road, Plattsburgh, New York, on October 11, 2016 at 7:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And to be further resolved that pursuant to the provisions of Article 17, Section 17.4 of the town zoning ordinance, the town clerk shall cause notice of the time and place of said public hearing to be published in the Press Republican, a paper of general circulation in the town of Plattsburgh, at least once on or before September 29, 2016, with such notice being posted at the town hall and be given necessary adjoining municipalities and the Clinton County Planning Board. and such agencies as party is required by the law. And to be further resolved that said public notice and a copy of full statement of the proposed map amendment shall be posted on the town's website. And be further resolved that a copy of this resolution and attachments be given to the town clerk, planning board, zoning departments, and Clinton County Planning Board.
Thank you.
And
Good job.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, is there a second?
Second.
Onward. Any discussion?
I think that in this particular instance where there was 600 acres approximately, and before it was about 152 acres that were zoned for business technology. That's what we wanted to try to get in there, and this just about doubles it with a few more acres.
Yeah, you know, really, if you were to look at the map as it currently stands, I remind people that there were two kind of separated, you know, sections of that property. And we're really continuing the zoning across that swath of land, for lack of better terms. Also, the manner in which we're going about these with the dates, you'll be reminded, it should be in your packet as well, the Airport Development District zoning map amendment timeline. Ricky, I didn't even have a whole resolution, I couldn't read it. And there's a bunch of different dates that were plotted out from the beginning. So we're just staying on that date. It's to make sure that we hit the other locations, to share it with the county, etc. So we'll have a public hearing on October 11th.
Yeah, I appreciate the amendment timeline. It gives a nice
Yep.
chronology of what's happening, what's next. So the deadline for the county planning board submittal is today, actually, right? But
Yeah,
we're gonna get
they
cooperation.
traditionally have worked with the county. If there's going to be some type of board action, that they
Okay.
will send it first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And a lot of times they'll file the topic so that they'll know that there's a topic on it.
Okay.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
So without further discussion, roll call, Rick.
Thomas Wood,
Yes.
Martin Mannix,
Yes.
Mike LeFay,
Yes.
Barb Beaver,
Yes.
Mike Kane.
Yes, this resolution does carry. And again, I do appreciate the council's consideration of this as we continue to move forward, and we will have that public hearing. Just kind of collect some stuff here. The next thing that will be in your packet is draft minutes. We then have the tentative budget to be filed for 2017. That'll be coming out later on this week. And then going into resolution, an adoption of the Lake Champlain Saranac River waterfront plan. And I would encourage anybody that has questions about that particular item and/or the lead agent seeker to speak with Trevor or Phil. Okay? I'll give you some additional information. I just have a bunch of backup here. Then we have typically an annual request as it relates to North Country Honor Flight. Here is a draft resolution and, sorry,
Lifeline?
thank you,
Life
Yeah.
North Country Life Flight. A lot of flag. Okay, and then there is their letter. This is something that we've been supporting for a number of years. I think it has a lot of value.
And that price hasn't changed.
Been 10 years.
Yeah.
So that is there for your consideration. Following that item, there is a letter from JCEO and a proposal for requested amount. We have over the last couple of years, I just wanted to note that we have been staying pretty flat. We have not been making the allocation for the amount that they have been requesting in full for a number of reasons for our budget, so.
But I do think that, you know, after that many years, it's been steady for as long as I can remember. I mean, this is a vital program, and even if we don't increase it as much as they asked, I think it should be increased.
Do you have Are you proposing a certain amount?
Well, I was thinking of $20,000.
Are you talking JCEO or?
JCEO.
Yes.
It's a federal program for the poor people in the community.
Tom, I'm gonna take a look at some things in the budget, and obviously I don't have the final say, but if I think we can make some allocations around, I'll rework this, and certainly on the floor next week, if people feel that if we weren't able to make that allocation, someone could amend it on the floor.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, obviously I'd like to see our budget before, but we're not gonna be able to do that, so.
Yeah,
since
so-
we're-
But that's
it's done now.
kind of where I'm coming at from that standpoint. The next items, you will have a series of resolutions and a letter from Paul Wright, Assistant Superintendent for Water, outlining 3 recommended, promotions. And I know that Scott, and I believe Paul as well, has had a conversation with the water committee on these particular items as well.
Can I go back to JCEO for a moment?
Yep.
Do we ever have, this community outreach director come give a sort of presentation so that we understand exactly where the funds are going and what they're doing?
Since I've been a board member, not that I can recall.
He has come in the past.
He has?
Yes.
I can certainly see if that's something, if we can get somebody to come in.
You're talking about JCO director or the director of the community outreach?
The community
Yeah,
outreach
outreach.
director.
Yes, it's Sally.
The person who's utilizing these funds. I mean, it's outlined here, but if there was some sort of data that could back up what the funds are being used for and how they're helping.
And I think it plays into the, even though it's a nominal increase, you know, want to be careful, but it helps us understand in terms of the increase in the contribution.
Just in terms of the contribution in general, yeah.
Let me see what we can do.
Thank you.
Yep.
You might want to go back and see when it was last changed, because I don't think it was changed for quite a few years.
Okay.
It's been requested, but yeah.
I recall, and, later in the evening after a long day, I believe the last 2 years it's been flat, at least. Yeah, so, okay, let me look into that. At the very least, we'll try to do some conferencing with her. Okay. Any questions as it relates to the recommendations from Paul? Meg or Marty, do you want to say anything about those particular items?
I would just like to say that when we have the resolution, I'd like to have the person's name in instead of their nickname. I'd like to see Matthew, since that's the person that we're doing, and this is a legal document. It says Matt, and everybody here knows what it is, but I think it should be Matthew. It is in the title, but it's not in the resolution.
You mean down below where it says Matt Rabbitt?
Yeah, that's what it's referred to straight through.
Well, do you see that as any different if the top was Michael Cashman and then I went by Mike?
No, I think Michael would be good, yeah. I don't see any difference. Somebody else might.
The promotions, Marty, Meg, they're in the step progression of each of these titles, obviously, and
Yeah.
budgeted for this year and next year.
And the only reason I bring the Tom is I wouldn't go by Mike.
I know,
So, but he may go by Matt.
and that's true.
So,
And that's okay, but legal document, is supposed to have
all right. That's all the official business before us, but I would make a motion that we go into executive session for proposed pending or current litigation with UPS. I would make the motion. Is there somebody that would second it?
I'll second that one.
Mr. Mannix. we will go in at 7:40. I do not anticipate taking any actions.